Let me show you how easy it is to peel. The first thing you want to do is rinse it with some cold water to remove any dirt and debris. Dry off the surface really well. You don't want it to be slippery when cutting. Place the squash on a sturdy cutting board and use a very sharp chef's knife to cut off both ends. Slice off about 1/2 inch from the stem. Turn and cut off the end. This will make it a lot easier to peel. Now you can use a paring knife or a Y peeler to peel off the skin. I prefer the Y peeler myself. Starting at the tapered end, peel straight down. You get nice strips. Rotate the squash until you've peeled off all the sides. You want to remove the lighter parts of the flesh until you see that super golden orange color. The skin can be really hard on the surface and sometimes difficult to peel, but don't worry, there's an easy microwave technique you can use to soften the skin. Prick the surface several times with a fork on each side. This will allow some of the steam to escape and soften the tough skin. Now cut off about 1/2 inch from each end. A quick warm up in the microwave is going to help soften the skin. You'll need about 3 minutes. The squash is going to be a little bit warm to the touch, so let it cool for about 10 minutes so you can peel it, and this will allow the skin to separate from the flesh. Now that the butternut squash is peeled, let me show you how to cut it up. Make a cut crosswise down using the rocking motion where the tapering stops. This tapered end has no seed, so it's going to be really easy to cut into your desired shape. This wider bottom part, however, does have seeds, so we want to remove them. Just cut it in half straight down. Now just use a spoon to scoop out the seeds. You could actually roast them just like pumpkin seed, so I like to save them. Try to remove as much of the stringy flesh as possible. Now there are different ways to cut shapes out of the butternut squash. For these ones that are hollow in the center, I like to place them cut side down and cut them into these nice semicircle little rainbow shapes. They're great for adding to gratines or a casserole or roasting. Or you can cut them into wider pieces, then cut them into cubes. Now for the solid tapered end, you have a lot of options here. You can cut them into really thin rounds, or to make quick dices, slice them down. Now stack a few slices on top of each other, cut straight down to give cubes. These dice pieces are great for making butternut squash soup, steaming, boiling, roasting, or even making tacos. 99, 100. Oh. That's a good question. For a 3-pound butternut squash, after you remove the seeds and the skin, you'll yield about 7 cups of diced flesh. If you've cut up and prepared a lot of butternut squash, it's good in the refrigerator, stored in an airtight container for up to 5 days, or if it's cooked, about a week. But if you want to enjoy the butternut squash all year long, you could actually freeze it. You could freeze raw or cooked pieces. Just place it in a single layer in a resealable plastic bag. Spread it out in a single layer so that they don't stick together so much when they're frozen. Remove as much air as possible, then seal it up. Lay it flat in the freezer till they harden up. Frozen butternut squash is good for 6 to 9 months. Did you know that you could cook a butternut squash 5 different ways? Let me show you how. Steaming. Bring a pot to a boil over medium-high heat. Once you see the steam start to build up, add in the squash. Cover and cook until tender, about 9 to 11 minutes. Yes. Boiling. Bring 4 cups of water to a boil over high heat. If you want to season the squash, add 1½ teaspoons of salt. Stir to dissolve. Add the squash and boil until tender, about 10 minutes. Nice and tender. Instant Pot. Add the trivet to the bottom. Add 2 cups of butternut squash, these are about 1 inch in size. You can also add a whole butternut squash cut in half as well. 1 cup of water. Place the lid on top and lock. Select manual high pressure for 3 minutes. Microwave. Add 2 cups of cubed butternut squash with a 1/4 cup of cold water. Tightly wrap with plastic wrap. Microwave on high setting for 4 minutes. Very carefully lift up the plastic with the fork and pierce the squash to see if it's tender. Roasting, add 2 cups of cubed butternut squash, 1½ teaspoons of olive oil, and some salt and pepper to enhance the taste. Toss everything together to evenly coat. Spread evenly on a sheet tray lined with foil that's lightly greased with oil to prevent sticking. Roast at 400 degrees until fork tender and lightly caramelized on the surface, about 20 to 25 minutes, flipping halfway through. Let me know which method you're trying first. You know, I see you at the market all year long, but nobody really cares about you or wants to eat you till the fall. Let me show you the easiest and most delicious way to roast a whole butternut squash. There's no peeling required. Just cut off both ends, trim off the bottom side. Starting at the wider bottom end, cut the butternut squash in half lengthwise. Use little rocking motions to cut through the flesh. Cut all the way down to the tapered end. Now you have 2 halves. Now use a spoon to scoop out the seeds. You could also cut and clean the halves like this if you're going to make the butternut squash in an Instant Pot or the microwave. Line a large sheet pan with foil, then brush with some olive oil. This is going to help prevent sticking. Now brush the cut side of the butternut squash with some oil too. Flip the halves cut side down to give maximum contact with the hot pan. This is going to encourage Maillard browning so you have a nice roasted caramelized surface on the butternut squash. Roast the butternut squash at 400 degrees until it easily pierces with a knife. About 30 to 45 minutes depending on the size of the squash. Let's test to see if it's ready. It pierces easily with a knife. It's ready to go. Wow, this already looks really good, but you know what? We're not done with it yet. Carefully flip. Ooh, look at that beautiful golden brown caramelized surface. It's going to taste so good. Now I like to season with a little pepper and salt. However, I wait to add the salt till the very end because it draws out moisture. And if I was going to do this right before cooking, it would create steam instead of browning. You don't want that. To play up the sweet baked notes of the butternut squash, I have 1 tablespoon of maple syrup, a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, and an 1/8 teaspoon of nutmeg. Just mix it all together. Now brush the maple mixture on top. Ooh, this is going to make it taste similar to candied yams, making it a really good side dish, almost like dessert. Now we're going to bake this for 8 to 10 minutes to caramelize the toffee-like flavors on the syrup. Now you can serve this whole or slice it up, but I like to serve it just like this, family style, especially for Thanksgiving. And then I add some chopped pecans for extra crunch. I'm telling you, it's like a healthy dessert that you don't feel guilty about.